So as I was saying, I'm reading through the words as it's written by our author because her words are powerful. But we know that in one of the extra credit posts, we really talked about the N word and why it really should be extinct at this day and age and why we shouldn't use it. And we know that right now it's being used as part of our studying to really understand a great challenge that was faced by the Logan family. So I'm going to start highlighting what we hear by Caleb Wallace, since we know that his threat is very haunting and could have a lot of negative effects for them. And we know that part of the conflicts that they're facing is the fact that he's now seeking them out, and even put his truck, he drove his truck and veered it across the road here to block them from being able to move. And we know that part of what he tells him is that he's really angry because his brother is hurt while he's free. So those are big dangers faced by the Logan family, since we know that Mr. Morrison is part of the family. Alright, let's keep going with our reading. When we reached home and told Mama and Papa and Big Ma what had happened, Mama said to Mr. Morrison, "I told you before I was afraid for you, and today Caleb Wallace could have hurt you and the children." Mr. Morrison looked squarely into Mama's eyes. "Miss Logan, Caleb Wallace is one of them folks who can't do nothing by himself. He gotta have a lot of other folks backing him up, plus a loaded gun. And I knew there wasn't no gun, leastways not in the truck. I checked. But if you stay, he'll get somebody, and they'll try to take you like he said. Miss Logan, don't ask me to go." Mama reached out, laying a slender hand on Mr. Morrison's. "Mr. Morrison, you're a part of us now. I don't want you hurt because of us." Mr. Morrison lowered his eyes and looked around the room until his gaze rested on the boys and me. "I ain't never had children of my own. I sometimes think if I had, I'd have wanted a son and daughter just like you and Mr. Logan, and grandbabies like these babies of yours. But Mr. Morrison, the Wallaces—" "Mary," said Papa quietly, "let it be." Mama looked at Papa, her lips poised to speak. Then she said no more, but the worry lines remained creased on her brow. August dawned blue and hot. The heat swooped low over the land, clinging like an invisible shroud, and through it people moved slowly, lethargically, as if underwater. In the ripening fields, the drying cotton and corn stretched tiredly skyward, awaiting the coolness of a rain that occasionally threatened but did not come, and the land took on a baked brown look. To escape the heat, the boys and I often ambled into the coolness of the forest after the chores were done. There, while the cows and their calves grazed nearby, we sat on the banks of the pond, our backs propped against an old hickory or pine or walnut, our feet dangling lazily in the cool water, and waited for a watermelon brought from the garden to chill. Sometimes Jeremy joined us there, making his way through the deep forest land from his own farm, over a mile away, but the meetings were never planned. None of our parents would have liked that. "How's your papa?" he asked one day as he plopped down beside us. "He's all right," said Stacy, excepting his legs bothering him in the heat, itching a lot, but Mama says that's a sign it's getting well. "That's good," murmured Jeremy. "Too bad he had to get hurt when he done so as he can't go back on the railroad." Stacy stirred uneasily, looked at Christopher John, Little Man, and me, reminding us with his eyes that we were not to speak about the Wallace's part in Papa's injury, and said only, "Uh-huh." Jeremy was silent a moment, then stuttered, "Some folks saying that he got hurt bad. That he got hurt. Glad he can't go make that railroad money." "Who said that?" I cried, jumping from the bank. "Just tell me who said it, and I'll "Cassie, sit down and be quiet," Stacy ordered. Reluctantly, I did as I was told, wishing that this business about the Wallaces and Papa's injuries were not so complex. It seemed to me that since the Wallaces had attacked Papa and Mr. Morrison, the simplest thing to do would be to tell a sheriff and have them put in jail, but Mama said things didn't work that way. She explained that as long as the Wallaces, embarrassed by their injuries at the hands of Mr. Morrison, did not make an official complaint about the incident, then we must remain silent also. If we did not, Mr. Morrison could be charged with attacking white men, which could possibly end with his being sentenced to the chain gang or worse. Okay, so here we have a huge issue, right? So they don't have equal rights. They can't just go to the police because they were attacked. Even though in Cassie's mind, she's thinking like that's the just thing that should happen. So they can't go, and even worse, it's they're forced to remain silent because it says here that if the Wallaces were to complain about Mr. Morrison, he would be the one punished because he attacked a white person or white men. Okay, so let's keep going. I ain't the one that said it, Cassie, stammered Jeremy by way of apology. Well, whoever's saying it, it ought not be, I said huffily. Jeremy nodded thoughtfully and changed the subject. Y'all seen TJ lately? Stacy frowned, considering whether or not he should answer. There had been much talk concerning TJ and the Sims brothers. All of it bad. Mo Turner's father had told Papa that TJ had stopped by with the Simpsons once, and after they had left, he had discovered his watch missing. The Laniers had had the same experience with the locket. That TJ had done turned real bad, Miss Lanier had said, and I don't want nothing to do with no thief, especially no thief running around with white boys. Finally, Stacy said, don't see him much more. Jeremy pulled at his lip. I see him all the time. Too bad, I sympathized. Stacy glanced reproachfully at me, then lay flat upon the ground, his head resting in the cushion of his hands, clasped under his hands. It sure is beautiful up there, he said, pointedly changing the subject again. The rest of us lay back too. Overhead, the branches of the walnut and hickory trees met like long green fans, sheltering us. Several feet away, the persistent sun made amber roads of shimmering sunlight upon the pond. A stillness hovered in the high air, soft, quiet, peaceful. I think when I grow up, I'm going to build me a house in some trees and just live there all the time, said Jeremy. How are you going to do that? Asked Little Man. Oh, I'll find me some real strong trees and just build. I figure I'll have the trunk of one tree in the bedroom and the other in the kitchen. How come you want to live in a tree for? Christopher John inquired. It's so peaceful up there and quiet. Cool, too, answered Jeremy, especially at night. How do you know how cool it is at night? I said. Jeremy's face brightened. 'Cause I got my bedroom up there. We looked at him unbelieving. I do, really. Built it myself and I sleeps up there. Come these hot nights, I just climbs in my tree and it's like going into another world. Why, I can see and hear things up there that I betcha only the squirrels and the birds can see and hear. Sometimes I think I can even see all the way over to y'all's place. Ah, shoot, boy, you're a story, I said. Your place too far away, and you know it. Jeremy's face dropped. Well, maybe I can't see it, but that don't stop me from pretending I do. He was silent a second, then hopped up suddenly, his face bright again. Hey, why don't y'all come over and see it? My pa's gonna be gone all day, and it'll be lots of fun, and I can show y'all. No, said Stacy quietly, his eyes still on the trees overhead. Jeremy sat back down defeated. Just wanted y'all to see it, that's all. For a while he looked hurt by Stacy's cold refusal. Then, seeming to accept it as part of the things that were, he again took up his position and volunteered good-naturedly. If y'all ever get a chance to build yourselves a tree house, just let me know and I'll help ya. It's just as cool. Papa sat on a bench in the barn, his broken leg stretched awkwardly before him, mending one of Jack's harnesses. He had been there since early morning, a frown line carved deep into his forehead, quietly mending those things which needed mending. Mama told us not to bother him, and we stayed away from the barn as long as we could, but by late afternoon we drifted naturally to it and began our chores. Papa had disappeared within himself, and took no notice of us at first, but shortly afterward he looked up, watching us closely. When the chores were almost finished, Mr. Morrison arrived from Strawberry, where he had gone to make the August mortgage payment. He entered the barn slowly and handed Papa an envelope. Papa glanced up questioningly, then ripped it open. As he read the letter, his jaw set tightly, and when he finished, he smashed his fist so hard against the bench that the boys and I stopped what we were doing, aware that something was terribly wrong. They tell you? He asked of Mr. Morrison, his voice curt and angry. Mr. Morrison nodded. I tried to get them to wait till after cotton picking, but they told me it was due and payable immediately. Them's they words. Harlan Granger, said Papa quietly. He reached for his cane and stood up. You feel up to going back to Strawberry tonight? I can make it, but I don't know if this old mule can. then hitched Lady to it, he said, motioning to the mare. He turned then and went to the house. The boys and I followed, not quite sure what was happening. Papa entered the kitchen. We stayed on the porch, peering through the screen. David, something the matter, son? Okay, so it gives you enough hints of what the problem is at this point. But if you want to read a few more lines, you could. Where it says, the bank called up the note. I'm going to Strawberry. Called up the note, echoed Big Ma. Oh, Lord, not that too. Okay, and then if you scroll down, it will tell us what the note is. Bank called up the note, so the bank loan must be paid off now. So they're basically telling them that, well, actually, let's leave that as a question to see if you can answer on your own. So what's the big problem? What's the big deal that's happening? Okay, you can even ask it here on the right-hand side, like, right? Like, why does Papa get so angry when he reads the letter Mr. Morrison gives him from Strawberry? Okay, so we have a question. We'll come back to this question tomorrow if we didn't catch it. But for right now, we'll use some of the other evidence to answer number 1, which is, what conflicts do the Logan family face? There are so many ways you can answer this, so choose whichever conflict you feel like is the most important, or you can even choose the one that interests you the most. I think the one that I'm going to choose is the one with the Wallaces, because we know that that one's pretty frightening. So I'm going to choose where Mr. Morrison faces him. Okay, so I'm going to choose this part about what Caleb Wallace says to him on page 9. But as mentioned, you could choose whichever quote you want. Okay, this is page 9. So this means, basically in our own words, it's saying that Caleb Wallace is really, upset wouldn't really cut it, right? I would say he's outraged because Mr. Morrison hasn't been punished for what he did to his brother, right? So this shows that the Logan family is at risk because, so it's kind of like answering the question, right? So how does that show a conflict? Well, we know that it's a huge conflict for them because we know that they face whatever retaliation Caleb Wallace has for them. So that's a big deal. Okay, so we'll continue more reading tomorrow, and we know that a lot of things are becoming pretty intense, so hopefully this book is really speaking to you guys at this time and place with what's happening everywhere, and I hope that it really gives you a lot of different perspectives. So more to come in the next videos.